Today, we are a couple of days removed from the announcement that the Atlantic Coast Conference bent over backwards to appease Florida State and Clemson. Maybe more than that. I don't know. I know I listened to part of the Cover 3 podcast yesterday. Actually, it might have been Monday. It was Monday when Chip and the boys were talking about it. And here is Chip Patterson, Cover 3 podcast moderator, CBSSports.com. My friend, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for listening. We did, well, as we said when we were given the context real time, news came out 10 minutes before the show started. So we wanted to address it, but we certainly did not have enough time to gather as much information, including, what the schools were told, right? Like what Florida State's university leadership was told so that they could approve the settlement of the lawsuit, what the ACC schools were told so that they could approve the settlement of the lawsuit, moving forward with new revenue distribution deals and sort of just a whole new financial reality. So, I appreciate you listening. We came back to it today as well.
What I'm sorry I missed today. What is the overall takeaway from that? I mean, I joked, not really joked, but I put this on Twitter and Blue Sky, that time of death, July 1, 2030. How inaccurate is that?
Oh, I think that there could be, I think there could be a situation where Florida State decides it's still in the ACC in 2030 or 2031.
Sure.
Or 2032.
If they don't have anything anywhere better to go.
Right. I mean, you know what this was? I think this is very relatable. I think that people in companies and businesses and workplaces all across this great state, unprecedented statewide platform and the like, they've all been in a meeting where you've got really, really hard problems. And then someone does the professional move is called kick the can down the road. And, maybe somebody says, put a pin in it. Yeah. Maybe, Adam, maybe someone says, let's circle back to this one next month. And everybody at the table is like, oh, thank God, because I did not want to solve these problems. And what I think has happened here is that a lot of these university presidents and athletic directors are like, I'm not going to be in this position in 2031.
Sure.
I don't want to have my professional reputation be that I was the cause of this. No, let's put a pin in that. Let's circle back into that. Let's just kick the can down the road. We'll figure that out. I mean, and look, I don't know. I don't know what Jim Phillips, how he views, his tenure, right?
Well, they're putting a brave face on it. That's for sure.
I mean, well, when he had the quote that you brought up last week about, we have to be guardians of the game and stewards of the people who came before us and will come after us. I'm paraphrasing there. I almost thought that was I just want to make sure that I just pass it on to the next person and let them break it. Yeah. I see from Florida State, from Clemson, from the ACC, so much uncertainty all around them. And that extends even beyond, paying players, the house settlement, employment, any other kind of ways that college sports becomes more professionalized. How about higher education? How about state-funded universities that are now like, and starting to feel a little bit nervous about what their financial reality is going to be?
Yes.
This is
that's a real life conversation with the funding that has been pulled from especially medical research. Holy mackerel. There are a lot of major universities staring at it, right?
The idea that everyone involved, Florida State, Clemson, ACC schools, the ACC as a whole, could just kick it down the road and have some cost certainty that they can make budgets on, I think was just a huge relief, and that's what we got here with this settlement.
And it does look like that we have a 6-year reprieve, right?
Right.
That at least through the 2030 football season. And after that, $75 million, you go. You can go wherever you want.
Sure.
And you get everything you need. You get all your rights and everything for a $75 million exit fee. Our friend David Hale actually put a pretty good primer on Twitter today that even for the existing schools, if 4 schools were to leave, July
300 mil split
12
14 ways.
Yeah, whatever. I can't do the math. There's too many teams in the league. And maybe, I think you and I have talked about this, maybe the ACC can say, you know what, we're going to scrap the equitable schedule distribution, and we're just going to make the best possible football schedule we can every year so we can, drive TV ratings up, which, of course, that I don't know if how many schools at the bottom of the league will approve of that, but
drive any, like what's a 0.1 to a 0.2?
That's a good point. Never mind. So, who are the winners here? I don't know. I think the ACC wins because this talk about two schools, suing the league is done because that lawsuit's over now. But who the winners? North Carolina's a winner. Miami may be a winner. Obviously, Clemson and Florida State win to an extent, but are there other winners here?
I think that Florida State wins even more than you might imagine if you look at it from the viewpoint that what they ended up getting, if they get everything pulled together and are not 2-10, the first ever 17th place team in the ACC standings. Congratulations, hang a banner. I think that Florida State got more than what they pitched.
They did.
Because remember, this was like 2 years ago.
Yep.
They started to bring up the idea of revenue distribution, essentially based on television ratings. Now they are getting, even more on top of that. So
plus performance if they perform.
Right. But with the exit fee dropped as well, thrown onto it.
Yeah.
I think Florida State's a big winner in the sense that they got even more, which, might, if I was to be a little bit reckless here, might tell you either how uncomfortable the ACC had gotten with just dealing with this or its legal position, at least in terms of, where things were going to be. Yeah. Where was this going to be decided? Because
I think it was the former, not the latter. I think their legal position was good.
Okay.
I think they didn't believe. I thought they were probably afraid of what the state of Florida would say first.
That's
having to deal with all the appeals.
Right.
And I think it was probably they looked at the mounting legal bills, knowing that all the schools had to come up with that money too. And I think they didn't like the conversation around it. And I think they decided, you know what, even if it cost us some money, it's better to just shut down the conversation. But I thought to me, the grant of rights was holding. It might not have held in Florida, but
listen. Hey, Adam, cancel culture is back. I have canceled the word ironclad, okay, or the phrase ironclad.
Right.
If you don't want to hyphenate it like it properly should be done,
it should be hyphenated.
Ironclad is canceled. We're not using the term ironclad anymore about anything. Okay. We can have things be clad, and we can have a lot of iron. It's good for your diet, but we are not doing ironclad anymore. It is another part of the conversation that was brought up today. If most of these grant of rights are probably written pretty similarly, there could be some industry-wide implications if this thing was to be tested. If you want to look at all the different parties that were somewhat tied to this, there could have been some motivations to not roll the dice on a Leon County judge and their opinion on the issue.
Yeah, and but they would have appealed that all the way up to wherever. But
just it would have had some reverberations.
Sure.
A lot of.
I think they wanted to stop it. I think they just you know what, it ain't worth it to just keep dragging this thing along. Let me just get to some football, and then we're gonna see if the Chipolytics can spit out anything for Duke UNC on Saturday. But let me just get to football. I know your pal Tom Fornelli, who always wears a San Francisco Giants hat, and I'm okay with that. During your Cover 3 podcast,
I can just real quick story. You can relate to this as somebody who got off that narcotic with the New York Jets.
Yes, I did.
The Chicago White Sox just did him in.
Oh, they should.
Yeah, right. And so that's when he was like, I'm a free agent. And he spent an entire baseball season looking, like many of us go into European soccer, just looking for the club that calls you.
Yeah.
And the Giants were the team that called him.
Good for him. I think the Giants are a wonderful franchise. I'd be a fan too. I am affiliated in Major League Baseball. Let's go Mets. So the quarterback rankings he's got Arch Manning 1. Mm-hmm. He has Cade Klubnik 2.
Yep.
Okay. Is that where quarterbacking is?
That's not. Cade Klubnik was one of the 5 to 6. Had one of the 5 to 6 best sort of stat profiles among quarterbacks in college football this past year.
Okay.
Now they were beaten up on some ACC defenses. Like, so if you want to take Cam Ward and Cade Klubnik's production and, try to grade them on a curve, I understand. They really filled it up in some beatdowns, both of them.
Yeah.
But I think Cade Klubnik got so much better throughout the season that watching him run that Clemson offense and watching those young wide receivers emerge, those two things happened at the same time. And going into next year, I definitely think Cade Klubnik is on your 5 names you would throw into a Heisman conversation to start in July.
Okay. And he's got, we'll get back to that. I'll circle back to that. Carson Beck is 3rd. Of course, he still has Carson Beck with Georgia. Is Carson Beck with Miami also 3rd? The piece has Carson Beck with Georgia. So I would not put Carson Beck there. I think that Carson Beck in performance was questionable when things were not set up for him. Correct.
Tate
and he's
Ratledge,
coming off the injury.
Yeah, Andy's coming off the injury. Tate Ratledge is an excellent interior offensive lineman that some NFL team is going to be thrilled to have. When he was out of the lineup around the middle of Georgia's schedule, Carson Beck had a run where it was something along the lines of 8 touchdowns to 12 interceptions across 5 games. And so I that's one thing where I would be looking elsewhere. I would be looking elsewhere before I get to Carson Beck in my own quarterback power rankings.
What about Kevin Jennings at SMU, who, to me, watching him on the big stage, boy, the first quarters were a problem for him. It was like, let me see how I can screw this up before I try to fix it. That has to get out of his game, no?
Yeah. I'm curious because Rhett Lashley is a really, really good offensive coach.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there is something, and I look forward to asking him a little bit later on in the offseason, maybe in July, but a little bit of that is you don't want to coach out of Kevin some of the things that also make him really, really special and dynamic. Sure. And so you're probably not wrong. I'm sure he's looking to improve always, but I would not like for example, I would not take Kevin Jennings ahead of Florida's DJ Lagway. I would not take Kevin Jennings, even though he had a very subpar mid-tier kind of season. I would not take Kevin Jennings over Nico Iamaleava just because I think that there's a high ceiling for when everything starts to come together. I wouldn't take Kevin Jennings over LSU's Garrett Nussmeier. That's just off the top of Drew Aller from Penn State.
Yeah, I was surprised that Garrett Nussmeier is still playing quarterback in college. I thought Garrett hasn't he been around 8 years?
No, he's not been around I
thought he was the quarterback before Joe Burrow at LSU.
What he was real threat to Jaden Daniels.
Right.
That Nuss was setting the bar that Jaden Daniels had to beat him out for the job when Jaden Daniels first made the transfer from Arizona State. And look, offensive rookie of the year in the immediate rear view, it's going to be hard to convince someone that when Jaden Daniels left Arizona State, not everybody was sold that this was going to be a hit. Right. No, not everybody was sold. I mean, he wins the Heisman Trophy, offensive rookie of the year. We're all proven wrong, but it was very much okay, there's a lot of talent there. He played as a freshman, was a little bit up, a little bit down. Let's see how it goes. And credit to Jaden Daniels. He beat out Nussmeier there in that first year and then just ran with it. Rest is history.
All right. Is there any quarterback in the ACC that you think might be able to take a step and emerge into a top 10 national quarterback? We had a lot of quarterbacks in the league last year I think a lot of people liked. And
so Haynes King is still there. Haynes King can stay healthy and drag all of his broken bones across the goal line 15 times.
What a fun college quarterback.
Yes, like Haynes King is an awesome college quarterback when things are going. I would not discount him.
Okay.
I don't have high expectations for Thomas Castellanos at Florida State, even with Gus Malzahn as the offensive coordinator. Yes, that was an entire sentence that I'm sure a lot of ACC fans hadn't really thought about. The idea that BC's Thomas Castellanos is the new QB at FSU, where Gus Malzahn, of all people, is the OC.
I got to take a knee.
It's a scene there in Tallahassee around that football program.
I bet.
I'm here in Raleigh. Like I don't think that CJ Bailey will be a top 10 national quarterback, but your question was like, who could take a step, right? Thomas Castellanos, for example, is Thomas Castellanos. Like right. We've seen it good. We've seen the bad. We understand who he is. He can be just fine as Florida State's quarterback if they put enough around him and they can accomplish some of their goals. CJ Bailey, he could be he could have a really good season. So that would be one that I think of in terms of a player.
That would be awesome.
Who could take a step, make a jump. I mean, I'm not expecting it out of like Eli Holstein at Pitt. No, Eli Holstein is Eli Holstein. We saw it 7-0 start. We saw a 0-5 finish. It's just kind of
what we need is somebody named Holstein to be a running back that you just keep handing the ball to, so we can call him a bell cow. All right, never mind. Let's move on. All right. Do you have any early Chipolytics on Duke at UNC? I'm guessing that the spread will be somewhere in, probably in the neighborhood of what it was at Cameron, which I thought was too low. It was 13.5. But I think that's probably where you'd have to set it. And I don't know if you can set it high enough that Duke won't cruise past it.
You're looking at this all wrong, and I understand. In the modern betting environment, there's so many different ways to bet on a game, and you're always going to be locked into the competition between the two teams with the point spread involved. But there's a little bit of an ATM machine that's just right under our nose. And actually, there's two ATM machines because they involve both the Duke men's basketball team, the North Carolina men's basketball team, and the over. Because what's happened is that both of these teams are scoring 90 on their own. And look, especially the great examples is the way that Florida State played against both those teams. If the opponent decides that they're going to run two, that's fine. North Carolina Duke is still winning games by 20 points, but the other team is still getting out to 70. And so, yes, that's the Chipolytics say that when that number gets posted, I don't know what number would scare me because
in terms of the total.
Yeah, in terms of the total,
yeah.
I don't. That would be the biggest shock of them all. If it's a super low scoring game, it's because Duke decided against all of its recent basketball to just slow it down to a Virginia pace, and their defense was really good and denied everything inside. Carolina couldn't make shots. I think that game's going to have so much pop. I think that game's going to have so much energy. And it's going to have a buzz to it that I think will get the game going up and down. So, I would literally expect almost any result in terms of even Carolina big would not surprise me. With big being 8 to 12 points, if North Carolina were to win and it was just Duke just had an absolute flop of an effort, it would be the first that we've seen all season.
Right.
But if there's a time when it could pop up out of nowhere, very last game of the regular season in Chapel Hill, if they come out breathing fire, sure.
That would surprise me a lot.
That would surprise you a lot?
A ton, yeah.
Okay.
Duke coming out with, I think there are scenarios. I think North Carolina can win the game.
Yeah.
I don't think they will. I think there is a greater likelihood that Duke wins by 20 than Carolina wins.
Yes. I would agree with that.
So, yeah.
That's what I said. You could tell me almost any result from Carolina by 8 to Duke by 22, and I would believe it. But the one thing that I feel confident about is this going to be a track meet.
Yes. Yeah, I like 95-75, something like that.
Yeah, that's 170.
I mean, it is amazing to watch. I mean, they were what were they just they were just favored by 19.5 points against the Wake team that had to win and had them on the ropes in Winston-Salem. And I looked at it and I went, yeah, that's going to be easy.
Yeah.
to not even be concerned about 19.5 points is utterly crazy. All right, real quick, final thing. Final Four, TGL. Yeah, I'm just kidding. It has been I've enjoyed it when I've watched it, but it's not great, right?
Yeah, especially recently, it's been tough because I've really been trying to get everything honed and sharpened and ready for March. Right. And so I literally would rather, and it would benefit me more to watch VCU at Duquesne.
Yeah, I get it.
So I was just sorry, Tiger. I'm watching VCU at Duquesne.
Yeah.
Drew Joyce has got the boys frisky right now, and we need to make sure that that potentially the next power conference head coach, Ryan Odom, make sure he gets it back on track.
My favorite part of TGL was them trying to make New York Boston a rivalry. I just thought that was hysterical. I'm like, don't try that. Anyway, yeah. You are the best. Chip Patterson, CBSSports.com, Cover 3 podcast moderator. My man, I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Y'all be well.